Everybody wants to know what I would do if I didn't win. I guess we'll never know.
Imagine making a difference. No, imagine being the difference. The difference between I can't and I can, or I won't and I will. The reason someone chooses to wake up and strive for greatness. In life, it can feel like everything is working against you. Let's defy all odds and break generational curses. This is Overstepping Poverty with Daquan and Zacchaeus. Welcome back to Overstepping Poverty, the podcast that provides you with tips, tricks, and hacks in overstepping poverty. My name is Daquan Brooks, and I'm here with my co-host Zacchaeus Shaw. How you doing, Zacchaeus?
I'm doing good, brother.
Hey.
It's been a crazy week. This past weekend, got to spend some time, go down to the Omaha Zoo, which I haven't been to in about 20 years. And got to see, life through my son's eyes, which was really cool. So
I like that. I love that.
Yeah, it was a good experience, a lot of fun, like one of our first trips with him being able to really know what was going on. So it was a lot of fun. How you been, bro?
That's good. I'm doing great, man. This week it's been flying actually, but it's been a great week. It's been a great day. Today, really just flew by, but I felt like all day I was positive through the entire day. Mm-hmm. There just wasn't anything. And then I had something to look forward to, and that's getting to this podcast. I mean, it's been a week since we recorded, and it feels like a long week, especially when you have such special guests on the podcast, and you just want to hear their story and you want them to tell everyone else about them, the things that, obviously people don't know. Most people just see, one part of a person or of an individual, and there's more to it. And so now we're here. I'm excited. So let's go. Let's get into the podcast today.
Yeah. Speaking of special guests that we bring on here, today is no different. We're bringing on somebody who is a business owner. She's an entrepreneur. She's a mother to two awesome children. She's got a podcast herself. Through everything she's been through, she always strives to get better and move forward. And today we have a very special guest, like I said, Monalisa.
Thank you. Hi, guys. Hi.
Hey.
Y'all, this is different because usually I'm the one interviewing people.
Right.
So, wow. I'm excited, though. I'm excited to get into it and, hopefully give a new perspective and just kind of share my story and what I've been through, in life.
Exactly.
So thank you. Thank you guys for having me on.
Yes.
Absolutely.
We're excited to have you. Originally, at this time, our episode with Tyler had already aired, and we had thought about having you guys on together, but I think it's important because you guys have both amazing stories and have prospered through really tough times. So again, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for that. Honestly, like I was kind of telling you before, Tyler and I were always on podcasts, or we're doing things together, and he's kind of like my safety net. Like when I don't want to answer a question or when I don't want to talk, I'm like, right. So now I'm like, this is my opportunity to actually open up and be vulnerable and talk about, the things that I've been through my life. And hopefully inspire someone out there, a young girl that's looking at this that may be going through a lot of darkness, because if I'm being honest, I've been through a lot of darkness in my life from childhood to young adulthood, and that's my main thing, is just really showing people that you can overcome that darkness. I'm excited. I'm super excited.
And speaking of that journey that you've been through, that's actually what we want to get into right away.
Sure.
I always talk about a resume, and most people think of a resume as something affiliated with a job, or it has to do with the job purpose or anything like that. But to me, a resume is exactly the things you went through to get to where you're at today. It's everything that built you. And so that's when I hear resume or anything like that, it ultimately takes back to, well, how's your past? What made you who you are today? So I want you to take us through that journey on exactly where you're from, how you grew up, and how did you get to this point?
Yeah, wow, that's a big question. All right, let me start. Let me go back to little Mona.
So I grew up
Well, okay, so I was born in Fargo, North Dakota. Do you guys know where Fargo
Oh,
is?
yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I was there, and then I moved here probably when I was like 3-4 years old, and I grew up here. And at a very early age, you know, honestly, if I'm being honest, my life was really chaotic. Not a lot of balance or stability when it came to my life. It was me, my mom, and my sister growing up. When we moved here, it was me, my dad, and my sister until they got a divorce. And so that was at a very young age. It was at the age of 5. And I remember that. That was honestly...
Are you the oldest?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So it's just me and my sister. And then I do have half siblings.
Okay.
My dad did remarry, had kids. And then I have step siblings as well. My mom also remarried.
Sure.
So it's just been me and my sister for the most part. But, you know, as I can remember, you know, at the age of 5, when my dad left, that was honestly probably like my biggest trauma right then and there was when him leaving. You know, I remember him telling, you know, the day before I was like telling him like, yo, like, I don't want you to leave. I don't want you to leave. The next day I go to school, I come back and all of his stuff is gone. I was like, where's dad? He left. And so from that moment on, it kind of felt like I was alone because my mom, she was a young mom. She had me at 19.
Oh, wow.
And so growing up with a single mom, she's a young mom going through her own struggles. I give her grace now. She's going through her own struggles, going to college, working multiple jobs. So it was just me and my sister for the most part growing up. I grew up here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. You know, we grew up, went to elementary here, middle school, high school here until I got kicked out of my mom's house because she was like, I could not handle you no more. She kicked me out. I went to my dad's. But backstory, throughout those years, you know, my mom was a single mom and she was doing the best that she could. And like I said, I give her grace. For the longest, if I'm being honest, it was kind of like, damn, Mom, why did you do this to me? Right. For a long time, you know, I was in that victim mentality. I'm no longer in that victim mentality because as a young mom myself, I can relate now. It's hard.
Right.
It's very, very hard being a young mom and trying to make it in this world. So, you know, me and my sister were alone a lot, and you can only imagine, no guidance really, just kind of fending for ourselves. She was at work a lot of the time. So when you ain't got no guidance, you are a troublemaker. You really are, you know. So I was in the crowd that wasn't really the best. You know, growing up here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota was hard for me because I did get in a lot of trouble here. And it was difficult. It was hard until the moment when my mom finally had the last straw. It's crazy because one of my friend's parents came to the house one night. I don't know what we were doing. We were being stupid, troublemakers. Right. And that was the last straw for my mom. The next day she's like, you got to go live with your dad. Like, I can't do this no more. So
how old were you at that time?
I want to say 13, 14.
Okay.
So yeah.
So about to be heading into high school soon?
Oh yeah. So I was a freshman actually. I was a freshman. So I think I was 14.
Okay.
Because I went to Roosevelt for half of the year, freshman year.
Okay.
Until my mom was like, I'm done. I can't do it no more. 'Cause, you know, at that time I was skipping school. I was getting into stuff. I wasn't, you know, wasn't focusing on school. And not only that, like, I know this is kind of all over the place, but not only that, I kind of want to get into school aspect. Like for me, for instance, I wasn't the smartest kid in school. You know, I have ADHD. So as you can imagine, I don't know if you guys. Yeah, my brain is all over the place, guys. It's constantly going from place to place. So growing up, having ADHD, not being able to really learn how the other students learn, made me feel really dumb and stupid. You know, like I honestly was a below average student growing up.
That's relatable.
Yep. So I actually had to take like extra classes to learn and to get me on track with school. So like even that in itself growing up was very hard because I was looked at, oh, she's dumb. There was moments where like I would wait until everyone went to class and then I would be in the bathroom and I would like sneak into the class that I had to go to because I was ashamed of being in, you know, an extra class that I needed help in.
Right.
So like that was pretty much my life, was like the underdog, I guess you can say, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
Living with my dad. So fast forward, getting into a lot of trouble here, which I'm thankful now because I honestly, if I was still here, I feel like I would have really went down a bad path with drugs and really experimenting with all of that stuff. So
do you think your mom saw that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. She definitely saw that. And even though she wasn't really around, like I said, she was, you know, kind of doing her own thing. That's one thing that I do appreciate about my mom now, is that she saw that, and she saw that, hey, my daughter can't be here no more because she will go down that wrong path. Like, you know, and so living with my dad, it was different because, to be quite honest, I didn't really grow up with my dad. After he left, it was like once a year I would see him. So like not having that emotional connection with him was really difficult to then just automatically moving with my dad. But in a sense, like I wanted that for so long to finally feel what it felt like to live with my dad, you know? So it was like this weird mindset that I had, like I'm living with my dad, but at the same time, I really don't know him. I barely know my siblings. Once a year, I would see them. You know what I mean?
Did your sister go with you?
No, she didn't.
So she stayed with your mom?
Yeah, so she actually stayed with my mom. And it's crazy because my mom was pretty much single throughout my whole life. She had a long-term boyfriend, but it was very off and on. I don't want to go in detail with that because mom, if you listen in, I don't want to put out your business, but it was very
shout out to mom.
Yeah, for real. I love you. But it was very just on and off. Like it was chaotic in that too. Like my life was very chaotic. Yeah, so my sister actually stayed behind with my mom for a little bit. And during that time when I moved with my dad, my mom then found her husband.
Okay.
So it was that too, like, damn, like,
it's crazy.
I'm gone for a year. You found a whole new husband, like, and I barely know him. So that was even weird in itself too.
Yeah.
Love you now, Ryan. Don't take this the wrong way. But so like living with my dad. Yeah, no. So my sister stayed with my mom for a little bit. And then I think she moved in with my dad for a little bit because my mom was then moving to Redfield with her husband. Okay. So do you guys know where Redfield is?
Yeah,
it is a small ass town. Like, nah.
Kind of is it by Tulare?
Yeah. Yep. Very, very small town.
Two places that no one never knows or goes.
For sure. I know. That's why I'm like, dang, it's so cool when someone's like, I know where Redfield is. Okay.
For real though.
But yeah, no. So like living with my dad, it was really, really different because like I said, didn't really have an emotional connection with him, but he actually was there and was a parent. Like my mom, like again, no shame on my mom. She was a young mom going through her own struggles, going through her own things, figuring it out. Like she really, you know, it was me and my sister.
Different stages of life.
For sure.
Too.
Yeah. And at that time, you know, my dad was married. So living with him, it was like, I didn't know him, but at the same time, it's like, wow, I finally get to experience what it's like living with my father, you know, because like, I didn't have a father really growing up. Yeah. And so that was really different, like having rules and stuff. Because with my mom, I had like no rules. I could like do whatever the frick I wanted to do. Structured. Yeah. And like my dad, y'all, he was so strict. Oh my God. Like he literally like was so strict. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what the heck? Like I couldn't have sleepovers. That's when I met Pedro, the father of my kids. Right. Actually when I was living with my dad. Okay. At the age of 14. And so even like having Pedro over, like my dad would literally be sitting right next to us the whole time. We could not be alone. The only time we could be alone is if we were going on a walk, right? And so when we were going on this walk outside, that's when we would do our little makeout session and, you know, do what teenagers do. Yep. But that was the only time. If my dad's listening, I'm sorry. But that's the only time that like, yeah, my dad was very, very strict. But, you know, living with him, I got a little bit of structure. I was on a right path. Even my grades and stuff, my dad made sure, you know, like being in school, he actually got me on medication for my ADHD, which I needed for so long. Right. And once I got on that medication, even my grades, y'all, like skyrocketed. Because I was doing like D's and F's and it went to an A and B. And I was like, wow, you know, so like, I don't know. I just feel like the dynamic was different. But
for sure,
that only lasted like a year because my spoiled self, I was a rebellious kid, to be quite honest. You know, as you can imagine, like growing up in a house with no structure, you think you're an adult at the age of like 10, 11. Right. So moving with my dad, I thought I was an adult, you know, and he's like, no, like there's rules here and we have structure here. Like you can't just go do what you want to do, you know, you know, and so that was really hard for me, very hard because I didn't have that. Like I said, like being with my mom, I thought I was an adult. And so
you kind of had to be one.
Yeah, I really did. Yeah. Yep. Because I was, I was alone. And so that only lasted a year. And I moved back with my mom to Redfield now. So I was in Sioux Falls. Yep. So then she was in Redfield. And so when I moved back to Redfield, that was a big adjustment because there's only like 50 kids in a class. That was so, and two, like living in a small town, it's very cliquey, super cliquey. And so like I was the new kid in Redfield, and that was different because the new kid, when you're in a small town, no one likes you, right? Like everyone's kind of dogging on you, like, and so that kind of how it was for me. Just, I didn't really have no friends. It was different. I was bullied. Yeah. Honestly, I was bullied throughout my whole life, to be quite honest, with a lot, even in Sioux Falls, very bullied. Just because I think the way I do feel like I was a lot more different than other kids, you know, very hyperactive, very goofy. And people saw that and looked at that as a weakness. And so I would get bullied for who I was as a person. So it really like, I was like in my shell.
They
like,
wanted you to fall in line.
And I'm still kind of in that shell a little bit. Like I'm a very goofy person, to be quite honest, but like I'm afraid to show it because if I used to get bullied for it. So like I like shut it down. But going back in Redfield, you know, that was really different, really different. And I don't really like that, but I didn't really like that. It was.
Where did your dad live?
Oh, so he lived in Fargo.
Okay.
Yeah, he
so
now lives in Texas. Yeah, my bad. Yeah. So he was living in Fargo, and he moved to Texas after I moved out. And the reason why he was living in Fargo is because he did want to be close to us. But like, that's honestly like a whole nother subject. Like with my mom and my dad, they just really didn't get along. It was always fighting. And so like, you can only imagine like when the mom and dad are fighting, it's hard for for children to have a relationship with their dad. And so like, I'm gonna be honest, I give my mom so much grace now. Like, you know, I know she went through a lot, but it's like, she kind of pinned my dad to be the bad guy growing up. So it's kind of like I never felt that, I never felt that connection with him. Yeah.
That's very relatable, I think, for a lot of people. And just, I think that's how society works a lot of times. Being a father myself, I feel like it's one of those things where you learn that's a part of the sacrifices that come with being a father is you're not always getting the better end of the stick, I guess to say. So very relatable because I kind of grew up in the same situation where there was a lot of arguing and yelling and stuff. So I know exactly.
And it sucks too because it's like you kind of have to pick sides. You know what I mean? Right. And so that was hard because it's like when I was with my dad, like I remember I just wanting to always stay with him and be with him because I wanted to get to know him more. But then at the same time, my mom's over here. It was just a lot of chaos. It was
pulling
a lot. Pulling me in
way.
different directions. And as a young person, you know, that's hard. Like you barely know yourself. You don't even know yourself at that age. Like, But so like being in Redfield with my mom, that was different. At the time, I was dating Pedro at the time. Okay. And so, he would come and visit me. And that's how I got pregnant at 15.
At 15.
Yeah. So, one night, he came and visited Redfield, South Dakota, got a hotel because he was 18 at the time. Okay. So he was older than me. Yeah. And so, he came and, and then a month later, I found out I was pregnant with Aaliyah. And that was...
What was that like?
Scary. So scary. I cried and cried and cried because... I was afraid. I was scared. But it's weird because my mindset at that time too was like, I can have a family now. That's how it felt because I was longing for a family for so long with my mom and my dad. They never got along, not even as co-parents. And so in my head, at a young age, like, wow, I can have a family now. But at the same time, I was sad all at the same time. Right. It was weird. So like finding out I was pregnant, I remember like taking multiple pregnancy tests. Like, on the line, I was like, holy fuck, like I'm pregnant. What the fuck? And my sister was there. It was just me and my sister. My mom was at work. My stepdad was at work. And so we were there at the house and I was taking these pregnancy tests and then it turned out it was positive. I remember, just crying. And my sister was there and she's like, you need to tell mom, like, what are you doing? Cause I thought I was going to hide it for a long time. But like at the end of the day, you can't hide a pregnancy. Like, come on now.
Right.
And so instead of, I texted her that I was pregnant. So imagine getting a text from your mom at, 15. Hey, mom, I'm pregnant. That's all I said. And man, she called me like 2 seconds later. She was bitching my ass out. She was like, what up? She's like, And it's crazy because if I'm being honest, she literally, when Pedro was there, she literally told him, she looked him in the eye and she was like, you better not get my daughter pregnant. She's not on birth control right now. If you guys are going to have sex, use a condom.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't do that. We didn't do any of that. So I'm sorry, Mom. But
so I have to ask because that's a lot of changes in your life in such a short period of time. As those changes happen, what did your life and like perspective, what changed there? Ooh. Like, what did you learn from that, from everything?
Honestly, to be quite honest, I feel like I was just going through the motion of life. Like I really wasn't evolving or growing. I was just living life as what I thought, you know, how I grew up in my environment. So honestly, not until recently, like within the past 4 to 5 years of really evolving and growing and changing my perspective and going back into time and healing those parts of me, because at that moment in time, I didn't have those tools to help me evolve and grow, you know, and I didn't have no guidance. So I was I was blind, to be quite honest. My eyes were not open. I did not have no self-awareness at all. Right. So going through those times. Sorry, he makes me nervous when he looks at me. But going through those times, I don't even think I really had like a big aha moment. I was just like, wow, I'm pregnant. Like, that's crazy. What do I do now? You know? And my mom told me, you know, she was like, you can either live with me or you can, you know, get out and get your own apartment and be an adult. You made an adult decision. So now you're going to be an adult. You have a baby on the way. And so, you know, I remember like even telling my mom, like she called me, she was upset. She didn't talk to me for a week. But I really appreciate it because after that week, you know, she then, I remember I got off of work because my first job was at Dairy Queen. Okay. And so I'm making ice cream and stuff.
That was my first job too. That's why my nickname is DQ. Let's go.
I love that. Hey, that's where all the cool people get their first job, okay?
Seriously.
But yeah, so like I remember even going into work and like just wanting to throw up because of the smell. Like pregnancy. But anyway, my mom didn't talk to me for like a week, and I got off of work one day and she was home and she was in the kitchen and she was like, all right, I think we need to go outside and have a talk. And I remember like she was just crying and stuff, and I just felt so bad because I felt like I failed her as a daughter. Like, damn, like I'm a baby and I'm having a baby. But one thing I appreciate about my mom is she's just so loving and caring, and she really was there for me after she got over that like shock factor of like, damn, like my baby's pregnant. You know, she was like, I love you. You know, and she really, I love you. I want the best for you. Like, I'm not going to tell you to abort the baby. Like, if this is what you want, this is what you're going to do. You made an adult decision, so it's up to you. And so after that long conversation, I came to the conclusion at the age of 15, almost 16, because it was like, I found out like a month before I was turning 16. Okay. And so at that conclusion, after me and my mom had a conversation, I then called Pedro and I was like, hey, like my mom is saying like, if you want to move out, you can move out and get your own house. At the time, Pedro was in Fargo. And so he actually moved to Aberdeen, South Dakota to get an apartment with me. And that's where we raised Aaliyah for like the first year and a half. And so when he moved to Aberdeen, that was a big adjustment too. We're both babies. He's 18, I'm 16, and we're no longer in Redfield. I'm now in Aberdeen, 40 minutes from my family. Like, this is my first time ever being away. Like,
at 15.
Yeah, at 16. At this time, now when I moved out, I was 16. Yeah. And it was a shitty apartment. Oh my gosh. It was so dirty. When we walked in there, it was so dirty, guys. Like, they did not clean it. It was like literally, it was probably just a little bit bigger than this room. So it was like a studio apartment. Yeah, right. It was just me and Pedro, and we lived in there for like 6 months. I enrolled in high school in Aberdeen, South Dakota. And I went to high school there for a little bit until I started skipping school because I was like this. I don't want to go. Sorry for swearing, guys.
No, you're good.
I was like, I don't want to go to school. So, you know, at that young mindset. But I did end up getting my high school diploma through Wessington Springs. I did an online program. Congrats. So thank you. So when my daughter was born, we were still in Aberdeen. And then, as you can imagine, a relationship as young people, we did not, you know, like, I was really in it, you know, because in my head, it was like this fairy tale, like, oh, like I finally get to have my family, X, Y, and Z. But Pedro, like, as a young man, like, you know, he was exploring, so like that relationship it was crazy. It was very toxic, but at the same time, so passionate. And like, that was like my first big trauma, like outside of my dad leaving. You know, just it was toxic. It was very passionate. It was just all over the place. Right. And like, to be quite honest, after Aberdeen, when Aaliyah was about, I want to say 2 at the time, we moved to Fargo. So then now I'm back in Fargo. I'm 18 years old in Fargo. Yeah. And Pedro's there. He got us an apartment. So we got our first apartment in Fargo, and it was going well. But, you know, we had problems, and, you know, he wanted to do his own thing. He was a young man. Like at this time, honestly, I'm finally now starting to heal from like all of our stuff that we've been through, because the trauma just put so much, like I could not see the good for a long time. I just saw darkness and bad. And so I'm actually in this phase right now. I actually, to be quite honest, last night was the first night that I went back and looked through me and Pedro's old Snapchat chats. I still had that. I didn't even know, you know, and I searched up his name last night and I looked through them and I'm like, wow, like I haven't looked through that for years. And like even photos of us and photos of me, Aaliyah, and him, like it was toxic, but we were happy at the end of the day too. Like it was just this weird dynamic that we had. Young love. And so like we were living in Fargo. We were separating, getting back together, all of that crazy stuff. And then it led to, you know, just like what me and him went through. He's no longer here, you know, because me and him decided to do something extremely stupid. I look back at it now and I'm just like, God damn. Like, and it's crazy because now when I look back at that situation, it stems down all the way down to my childhood, just not having that guidance and being super impressional and not, you know, having no one to tell me what's from right from wrong. And like, I give my mom so much grace because she did the best that she really could, you know? And so like for the longest, if I'm being honest, I did blame her, like, why, Mom? Why? You know, like, but now I do give her a lot of grace. And fast forward, you know, going through this situation with Pedro and experiencing what I experienced of, you know, me and him doing something so foolish and so stupid. And I look back at it now and I'm just like, fuck. Yeah. But I will say now, like, it's so crazy because if I didn't go through any of that, like, I don't think I would be this person I am today, because honestly, that moment in him passing away and dying was that moment where I had 2 options. I could either live in hell for the rest of my freaking life until I died, or I could evolve and grow and change who I am as a person. And if I'm being honest, after he passed away, for a while, I was living in hell. I couldn't even get out of bed. Like, there was moments like, my victory for the day was brushing my teeth for the day. You know, my mom had to take care of my kids. Not only that, when that situation happened, when he passed away, I was pregnant with our second child, Raiden. So Aaliyah at the time was 3. Raiden was in my stomach. And
how old are you at this time?
I'm 19.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yep.
And how old are you now?
I'm 25.
Okay.
Yep. So I'll turn 26 next month, July 5th.
Okay. Very nice. That was my son's due date.
Really? I love that. Hey, Cancer babies.
You know they emotional.
Yeah, for real. Hey, period. That's why I bring so much light to my business, because I'm the emotional person.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Ties the logical, but yeah.
I want to take this and kind of fast forward from that point, because that was a paradigm shift that changed your life and your children's life. Yeah. Before we get into the business stuff, what was it about the relationship that you've built with your husband? You know, Tyler.
No, I'm like, Ty.
Right? Like, what about it, about him? For people that are out there that maybe are single mother, what are some things that about him that you're like, this is the right guy to help me raise my children, and now they're his children, you know?
Yeah, so honestly, he was there for me. Like, he did not judge me one bit. And when going through all of this chaos in my life, like, Tyler was my safe place, honestly. Like he was there to help me. And I knew that it was coming from a genuine place. It wasn't coming from any other place. It was like very genuine. And like he really cared about who I was as a person.
Right.
And no one, I've never really felt like that.
What
with
made you
anybody.
feel that way?
Just how he would talk to me and how he would make me feel safe when I was opening up and being honest with him. Like, because throughout my life, I could not do that.
Right.
I really couldn't open up and tell my feelings to anybody. He was like the first person where I could be open and tell it all, and him just listen, literally just listen. And there was moments, and even too, like him meeting my kids was very special because not once did he complain. And, you know, in the beginning, I mean, obviously throughout the years, we've obviously had very tough conversations.
Right.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, like he was just there. He was like, I just want to love you guys. I just want you guys happy. And he really took on that role. And if I'm being honest, like I felt like I really kind of rushed the process. Like when he met my kids, I wanted to make sure that it was like a for sure thing. Like
Right.
I didn't want him to meet our kids. Aaliyah already went through, she just lost her dad.
Yeah.
You know, she was 3. She lost, Raiden, he was in my stomach, so he didn't have any of that. But I knew like when Ty met the kids, I'm like, yo, like when he meets them, like he's gonna have to stick around. Like he
Right.
can't. Aaliyah just lost her father, you know? And so like, and he was there, like he took on every role and he made me feel safe. And if I'm being honest, like he was there in the beginning of it all. Like
Right.
he went to court dates with me
Wow.
to, you know, I was facing 25 years in prison at the time when he was with me, and he was there. If I'm being honest, I had some jail time. He was there to watch my kids while I wasn't, you know.
Wow.
You know, I had 60 days in jail, so I would go 10 days in, 10 days out. And so when I was in, he was there, and he made sure. And like, that's one thing I appreciate about him. He
That's
was
a
he was
blessing.
my best friend. Like,
Yeah.
and he was open, he was honest, he was real. I've never met no one like him. I'm like, I don't know what y'all believe in, but I really feel like it was God really sent him to
Yeah.
me.
Oh yeah.
For sure.
For real. Like he truly sent him to me to help me, to really help me. And that's one thing we always talk about. I was like, we were meant to like help each other evolve and grow in life. Cause that's one thing too. It's like, he has helped me evolve so much in life. Like I honestly feel like without him, I feel like I would be stagnant because again,
Right.
I did not have no guidance at all. Like the way my family thinks is very just,
You needed like a leader.
I
That's
didn't
what he
have that.
was.
Yeah. And he's
Strong
always,
man.
and he's always been that for me. And
Yeah.
like, I really appreciate that about him. Like
That's
for
dope.
real. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like people underestimate like the presence of someone. You know what I'm saying? Like presence is everything. Like when you are there, that time that you are fully engaged. And you had mentioned how Tyler is a great listener. It's so easy for us to sit and hear someone talk and just hear them. But hearing someone and listening to them is completely different.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure. Yeah.
So that's kudos to you finding that strong man in your life, you know,
for real.
and him finding a strong woman as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
you know,
no, I
absolutely.
appreciate that.
Like there's one thing that I've noticed, like even in my relationship, I'm sure Zacchaeus has seen it in his relationship as well, is it's you guys, you continue to play on each other's weaknesses and strengths, and that's what makes the relationship so strong, you know, and it's special, and I love it. And so like hearing you say that, I'm like, dang.
Yeah, no, it's so true.
Hey,
And that's
like,
one
you
thing
know?
that's one thing that we really realize about each other too, is like what I'm good at, he's not. What he's
Right.
good at, I'm not. And
Yep.
like we just really
a
complement
match.
each other
It
when
is.
it comes to that. And
Right.
it's beautiful. I love my
is.
man. I love my husband. And
Yeah.
it's funny because like my family, it's funny because they'll be like, you're so spoiled. I'm like, yeah, as I deserve
And
to
I
be
should
spoiled.
be.
Like, come on now, I'm a queen. Like,
Right.
Yep.
Well, let's
and that's my king.
exactly. Let's take this to really what I feel like most people in Sioux Falls at least know you guys for, at least originally. Tell us about your clothing brand, Wake. I know it's something that was an idea at one point and kind of was on the shelf.
Yeah.
And you helped kind
Build
of
that.
bring it
Yeah,
to
yeah.
life.
Hmm,
So
yeah.
tell me about that.
Yeah, it feels so weird because Ty's not right next to me, and I feel like he has such a big part because he is the one that created Wake.
Yeah, okay.
You know, and so it's funny because back then, I always get the dates mixed up. I think it's back in 2015 or whatever. So we were Facebook friends. So it's crazy because we've actually been friends for a long time. But anyway, back in 2015, we were Facebook friends, and he reached out to me and had this clothing brand, Wake. And he was bothering me about getting this t-shirt, Wake. and I was his first customer.
Wow.
I bought his first t-shirt.
Okay.
And it's so, yeah,
That's
I bought his
crazy.
first t-shirt. So, hey, and look at us now.
Right.
But anyway, fast forward when we did get together. So it's crazy because growing up, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always had it like in my blood. I remember telling my mom at a very young age, like, I don't want no one to boss me around. I'm going to be my own boss. I'm going to make it for myself. I actually, like growing up, I was a big daydreamer and like just full of dreams. And like, I always knew that I was going to make it big somehow. And I'm not saying I have not made it big at all, but one day I will.
It's on the way.
It's on the way, baby.
Fruition. Let's
But
go.
like, and I always had that vision and that dream. And so I remember my first experience of being an entrepreneur is, so my mom used to collect these bunnies. They were like these vintage glass bunnies.
Okay.
And she had them store away. And one day, it was a summer day, it was just me and my sister out, and we were doing a lemonade stand. I was like, man, we can make more money. Like, come on. I go into the shed and I see all of these glass bunnies in the shed. And I'm like, oh, we should sell these. You know, mom doesn't use them. Like, let's sell these, right? So we get them out on the corner. We have all these glass bunnies.
gosh.
We had our first customer before my mom pulled up. And oh no. But okay, we had the first customer. She comes up and it's funny because she's like, does your mom know that you're selling these? And I'm like, yeah. And I think we sold them for like $20. And my mom pulls up and she was like, what are you doing with my glass bunnies? I think she swore a little bit too. She's like, what the fuck? Like, what are you doing? I was like, what? We got in big trouble for that. So that was like my first experience of like being an entrepreneur is like selling these glass bunnies. I got in trouble for that. But hey, made some money.
But it was a lesson.
But yeah, so that was my first. So I just always knew I wanted to. And aside from that too, even like, if I'm being honest, like being like a trend starter in my school, that was like another thing. I was a trend starter growing up in my school. You know, I got 2 core memories of being a trend starter when it comes to press on nails. We're in them right now.
Hey.
There was one, so my stepmom, she always had her nails done, and I like always admired that about her. Like, I thought that was just so cool, like boss vibes. And I was in 5th grade, and I always wanted to get my nails done, but my stepmom was like, you can't get your nails done like, you know, like acrylic, because like you're young, like you're a baby, you can't do that. So, Tuesday nights, we would have grandpa nights, and he would give us $20 every Tuesday, and we could spend it on whatever we wanted. Mine was press on nails from Walmart. And so I started buying them from Walmart, and I would the next day come to school with them on, and I would, you know, bring extras and have glue and stuff, and it started being like this little nail salon in my school. And it actually became a problem to the point that they actually banned. It was Jefferson Elementary, and they banned us having nails in school because it was that. And outside of that too, in middle school, there was another thing. It was called the Perez ponytail. I would wear my hair at the, like, I would do a ponytail and I wear it like at the front of my hair. People would start doing it and be like, I'm wearing the Perez ponytail.
Right.
But so that kind of like really like structured me wanting to like be an entrepreneur, be an inspiration to others and empower others. You know, I always had that in me. That was my gift. And so when we got together, I've been wanting to start a boutique for a long time, but I knew I wanted it to be different. I did not want it to be like what Sioux Falls has here. I wanted it to be a little bit of a baddie type of boutique, you know, just something a little different, stylish.
A little edgy kind of.
Yeah. And it's crazy because the name was going to be La Monalisa. Like, ew, how ugly. Like, no. But it's crazy. And like, I had that on my mind for a while. he obviously had Wake, you know? And so it was crazy because one night, like late at night, he was working, I was in bed, and I just remember like sending him like these long, I really feel like God was talking to me like about our purpose and where we're going. And after that, like after I got confirmation of God, like I texted him this long paragraph. I don't remember what it says, but pretty much like, we're going to start Wake. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And X, Y, and Z. Literally, he came home and the next day he was like, all right, we're doing this.
Wow,
we got the LLC started. Yep. We got the LLC started. We got our first shipment. It's funny because the first, I was like, after this, we're going to sell out and we're going to be rich and all of this. No. And it's funny because he let me have that like fantasy in my head. And he was like, you gonna wait, this is actual work. Like we're actually gonna have to sell and be business, be business people. But so yeah, that's how we started Wake.
Crazy.
And so I just think Tyler and I just have always complimented each other on like differences on like what he's good at, I'm not good at, and what I'm good at, he's not good at. And I don't, it just works. Like,
it goes together.
And we just honestly, like, since that day, like, we just have always been building.
Right.
Yeah. Always been building. And, there's been moments where it has been extremely freaking hard, where it's like, we want to give up. Like, this isn't worth it. Yeah. But then we go back and it's like, no, like we're not people that don't give up, and it's like that's what success is. It's ugly to get to, where you want to be, but there's so much beauty in it. And so, we just have been building. And, recently we announced that our brand is a creative agency that offers fashion, multimedia, marketing, storytelling.
That's big.
And, throughout the last 5 years, that's one thing that Tyler and I have been very big on is content creation and how we tell our story and the storytelling before a brand. And we just came to the conclusion, like, how can we help other people do that?
Because how will that help other people?
How? Move it. You put me on the spot. How would I think it would just help other people with their audience to showcase who they are and their storytelling through that? Because a lot of people, they have these businesses, right? But they don't know how to tell their story. They don't know how to connect to their audience. That's one thing Tyler and I have been really, really good at, is being able to connect to our audience's heart. And so that's how we want to help other people on their brands. It's like, because a lot of people, they don't want to put themselves out there. So let us help you put yourself out there without you really putting yourself out there. If that makes sense.
No, there's definitely a sense of vulnerability that you have to have when you're gonna start putting content.
Absolutely.
Right? And there is a fine line between sharing everything and sharing what you want to share.
Yeah,
right? So
you'll get some haters, guys.
Oh yeah,
that's inevitable. That's inevitable.
That's what happened. That's what comes with success. Okay.
There's one thing that people don't like, and that's the unnormal. And what's the definition of normal? There isn't one. And so when people continue to put themselves out there, it makes other people feel uncomfortable because they're uncomfortable with it because they don't know how to do that. And they're afraid to do that. And so I'm like, all right, listen.
Just tell them
but that's when you can inspire, though. You can inspire them like, hey, you ain't got to feel uncomfortable. Like, this is for me to inspire you. Like, you can do it too. Like, it's easy. It's so easy. You just have to do it.
And it's like a weight like off your shoulder really too. It's just like, I can be myself. Like, you can be yourself too.
Yes, it's so true.
It really is.
And like, you will find your people through being yourself. Like, you don't got to put on a mask. Like, I know it's hard in today's society. Like, because I feel like that's what society tells you, like, you got to be this certain way to get X, Y, and Z or to be successful. And it's like, no, you don't.
You can do it your way.
You can follow your passion and it will lead you to your purpose.
How has, the whole fashion scene and really the modeling that you've done, how has that helped you really find yourself?
It's helped me love myself, honestly, because if I'm being honest, so the first time that Tyler and I did a photo shoot, I actually used to cry after every photo shoot because I did not feel beautiful enough. I did not feel confident enough. And through this, it actually taught me because for instance, let me take it back a little bit. When you look at social media, right, you look at all these social media models, there's a certain aspect, right? You got the big boobies, you got the big booty, you got the hips, you got the lips. And let's be honest, all of us don't have that. Like, I used
a
to.
lot of them didn't have that.
Yeah,
either,
that's so
but
true.
What you
It's so
talking
true.
about?
And honestly,
I got all
I
that.
embrace myself so much now. Like I love the way I look now, and it makes me sad that I used to be so critical of like, dang, I don't have these lips. For the longest, I was super insecure about my lips because I would look on social media and they had juicy lips, and I just don't have juicy lips, right? And so like, you know, and even just certain things about my body, you know, being a small chested girl, you know, being even smaller in height wise and stuff. And it used to really take a big toll on me. But through modeling and fashion and stuff, it's just really like, yo, like, I love who I am now. Like it's honestly has really made me very, very confident in who I am.
What kind of advice do you have for people who can't get over that? Like, how did you take the steps forward to
honestly
love
yourself? This sounds so cheesy and cliche, but honestly, telling yourself affirmations every day for real, and like really
you gotta speak life.
Yeah, and speak life, and you literally look yourself in the mirror and literally look eye to eye with you and like tell yourself, I love you. Point out your flaws. Be happy about them. Because at the end of the day, we all got flaws, right? 100%. Physically, mentally, spiritually, physically, we all got flaws. And so just loving yourself, affirmations. And I know that sounds super cheesy, but
it doesn't.
It really does help.
True,
And honestly, like having my daughter look up to me too has been really big as well, because I don't ever want her to look at herself and be like, Mom, I look ugly, right? It's no. But more so too, like looking inwards. Like it's not just physically. It's also too like, do you love yourself within? There are days where I'm like, oh my God, I feel like an ugly person. Not on the outside, on the inside. And it's like, that's when you got to reflect and figure out like why.
That's facts.
So I just reflect.
Yeah.
Love who you are.
The next question I was going to ask, actually, you mentioned your daughter, so it's ironic, I guess. I know more of Raiden.
Yeah.
Right. So he came to some of the groups that we've been to together, and he's awesome.
Yeah, my little man.
Seeing the pictures and the photo shoot that you did with yourself and your daughter, and then you just mentioning her really being like a little version of you, right?
Yeah.
Like, what does she represent to you?
Oh man, she represents strength, grace, and love. That little girl is so strong, especially the things that me and her had to go through together and experience. And you know, that little girl been through a lot of darkness, you know, and seeing the things, and she still is happy. She still puts a smile on her face. And not only that, she's not afraid. One thing I love about my daughter, she's not afraid to ask questions, and she's not afraid to ask me about the past and just having that open conversation. She's just such a beautiful young girl. And one thing too I admire about her is she's a nerd, and I love that. I love that, because that was not me. Not me. She loves learning, guys.
That's
like
awesome.
She really loves learning, and I think she's going to be a scientist one day. Who knows?
That might come from the environment.
But yeah,
that
like
she's
just such a beautiful soul though. Like she is so beautiful, and she has like a mothering energy as well. Like she wants everyone, she's a leader. She wants everyone to be happy, but she's also a leader in what she wants and how she wants it. And that's one thing that I'm just happy that both of our kids are really good at expressing themselves, expressing what they want and what they don't want. And that's one thing that we've really installed in them. It's like
the confidence.
The confidence. Yeah.
That's awesome.
She really, that's what she represents.
I love that.
My baby girl. I love her. She's a boss for sure, guys. The other day at the photo shoot, I was telling Zacchaeus this. I got to tell you the story. Yeah. I was telling Zacchaeus this. So she had her first like creative photo shoot with me. Oh man, she was just so funny. She was giving us the poses, telling us how to pose. And then about like 40 minutes into it, she was like, all right, I'm done. I'm hungry. Let's go. Like, dang, okay, girl. So, and I literally had to tell the photographer, and she goes, no, it's okay. It's okay. I'm like, my daughter doesn't want to do this no more. We gotta go. And so,
I love it.
and her form of payment was food. I think we got Jimmy John's. I'm pretty sure it was Jimmy John's.
Yep.
Yeah, Jimmy John's that night. So yeah, like that's one thing. I love her. She's so bold. I love it.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, before we get into the next part of our episode here, there's one question that we ask each of our guests. Let's talk about the journey, right? Your journey has led you here. And when we sit back and we think of exactly everything we go through and what's made us us, it's because of that journey. And there's one thing that we live by as overstepping poverty, and that's it's not a handout, it's a hand up, you know? And with that being said, when I say overstepping poverty to you, what does that mean to you?
I think breaking generational curses, living a life that is authentic to you. It can be very, very hard to live a life that's authentic, especially if you come from a background that's very in their ways. That can be very hard. And I think poverty is a general statement. Like I think it can mean, it doesn't necessarily mean like coming out from the hood. That's I don't, you know, like what I take from is like even your mindset can be poverty, like the way you grew up, how you were raised. And so that's what I think it is, like taking that leap of faith and overcoming all of those struggles that maybe your parents, you know, had in the household, or you know, their mindset of what they think that your life should be, overstepping that. And so that's what I think overstepping.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And now moving on to our next part of our episode here, we like to open up questions to our guests here and what we call is Roundtable. Okay. So I want to open that up to you. What questions do you have for Zacchaeus and I?
Okay. I got them. So Logan, I got them right here because I got some. And it's funny. So Zacchaeus, what is it like maneuvering being a husband and father while going after your dreams?
It is a lot. It can be stressful. A lot of times when you're chasing your dreams or doing something you want to do, you know, that comes with sacrifices and making a choice. You know, before we did this, I would play video games and I would do things that really in my mind at the time when I started to when we had our son, it was like, I feel like I'm just wasting my time. I'm sitting here. I always wanted to build stuff, but I just found that I was wasting my time. So it was like, I need to do something productive. And that led to doing this podcast. But just as far as chasing my dreams, having a family and trying to grow my family and all that stuff, that's what I do it for. You know, it's beautiful. Like those things, or my family really drives me with this stuff. So yeah, I would say that.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So for you, I really love that. Yeah. So for you, what is it like for you, like when you're as being a husband? You don't have children yet, do you?
No children quite yet.
Yeah, yeah. So what is that like for you? Like,
man,
like being a husband, but also wanting to go after your dreams and like.
Here's the nice thing about it is I have a partner that allows me to chase after my dreams, you know, and she's very supportive, you know, and so even if it's like just off the wall and there's probably times where she's probably like, no, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that. But she's supportive of it, you know?
It's so
and
true.
So, yeah. And so that like gives me like my strength and like the legs to move forward and run with my dreams, you know? And so it's easy. This feels like normal. And this podcast, it should feel normal. Like we're trying to teach people things that we went through and how to overcome those, you know, and that's the whole thing of overstepping poverty. You know, as we grow, you grow, you know, and so each one teach one. Yes, exactly. Like seriously, like you're taking things out of one person's head and you're putting it into the next person's head so that they have that successful mindset and they can achieve things.
That's so good. I love that. Okay, I got another question, guys.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I got two more. Okay.
Let's get it.
Okay, so are you a financial advisor or no?
I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a finance manager for Billions.
So, can I still ask this question?
Absolutely,
okay.
please.
So what would you tell the average young adult how to prepare financially for their future? Honestly, both of you guys, because the
first thing I would tell them is credit is huge. Credit makes and breaks quite a bit of things. And there's one thing that I feel should be taught in high schools and whatnot, and that's how valuable credit is. So if you can't learn it there, I definitely suggest finding a place, YouTube, the internet, and just learn exactly how to really start off on credit. If you're not learning it at home, mothers, fathers, you know, uncles, grandmas, whatever you are, I think you should start teaching the next generation exactly how valuable credit is. Just because there's so many billionaires and they use their credit to to make that money. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They're borrowing other people's money to make money.
That's so true.
And so, yeah.
And we don't get taught that.
No,
like,
not
and
at
a lot
all.
of us too, like grow up in a household like credit is bad. Don't use it because you will, you know, ruin your life. Like that's how I grew up. So,
Yep.
so that is so good. Oh, I love that.
The
What
first
about you?
thing I would say is you have to go to the core, I think, with it, right? And as you grow up, the things that you've been through, whether you had to fend for yourself or not, it starts with your relationship with money, right? Like, how do you view money? Is it something that growing up you guys didn't have a lot of, so now you want a bunch of money but don't want to get it? Or is it something to where money has always been used as a tool in your family, so you have a different perspective? So I think understanding what your relationship is with the money is the first place you start. And then other than that, it is the education.
Yep.
Like you have to become educated. I mean, you can learn so much stuff. Like he said on YouTube, we learn how to do this podcast on
Yeah.
YouTube, you know, and I'm sure you
Yep.
guys go look at stuff on YouTube to learn. So like there's so many things that are fingertips, literally, that are here to help us, and we can't rely on the school system to do it. And we can't really rely on our parents to do it because, as you mentioned with your mom growing up, like she did what she could. Like she had to be working them jobs. She really couldn't be at home because she had a responsibility to put in the roof over your head, right? So a lot of times people do blame it on their upbringing and where they come from and everything, but we all have the opportunity to learn.
It's so
you
true.
know.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, like overstepping poverty.
Gotta overstep poverty.
Yeah. Okay. So this one is emotional.
Okay.
So for the both of you, so what does self-love mean to you as a man? And I know that sounds like super like girly and stuff, but I do feel like as men, you guys are like providing and not taking the time for yourself. So like, what are the things that you do that like rejuvenate you as a man to be able to provide for your family?
You have to do the things that you love, right? Like even this year I was contemplating, I coach football and I was contemplating it, whether I wanted to do it or not, just because I didn't feel like I would have the time. I started to think about it. I'm like, this is like one of the only things that I do that I truly love. Like, so I have to do it, you know? And I notice when I'm doing those things, I feel recharged and I'm able to go about my day. I'm able to go continue working after, or go take care of my family or whatever it is. So self-love is really important. I credit you guys, you know, holding your mental health group out at the warehouse when you had it. That was the first time I had ever been to a mental health group, you know, and I feel like from that point, what's happened in my life has been in an upward trajectory. So when you start taking care of yourself and really diving into you and all the mess that's been created with inside of you and start figuring things out, like you start to learn who you are and you're able to love yourself more because you do know who you are at that point.
Oh, that's so good. That gave me chills.
Yeah. What about you?
Mine kind of plays off of that, but there's one thing that I feel society says a man has to be. A man has to be strong. A man has to be able to hold things together. And maybe this is in my mindset, but I feel like society always puts a lot of weight on men's shoulders, you know? And so what I feel like is men have to be more vulnerable, you know, to really find that self-love, you know, you have to be vulnerable. And it brings me back to conversations with my wife. There's younger me, I would used to just get so upset and I would just be in my own darkness. Okay. And so my mom finally gave me a journal and she's like, if you don't want to tell me this stuff, write it down. And so I started writing things down in the journal, and it's probably one thing I need to go back to. But I soon learned as I continued to write, I was able to be more vocal about the things that are hurting me or the things that are weighing me down. And so like with my wife, even like there was times when we first started, I put up walls, I put up barriers, and that's not one thing you want to, I mean, you're supposed to communicate with your significant other. And that's where I was at. And through those hurts and through writing in my journal and stuff like that and finding that self-love, I was able to be vulnerable with my wife and let her in. And that's how we built this relationship, you know, that's how we built that strength. But so really for men, I mean, you have to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that that's going to make you look weak. If I'm being honest, I think it makes you look strong. If you can be vulnerable and you can get the things off of your chest and work through stuff, you're strong.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure.
And so that's how you find self-love, I feel like, in my eyes.
And the vulnerability, that was the first topic of our episode.
Yep.
You know, was vulnerability. It's literally the only way you're going to grow is if you put yourself in a position where you're not comfortable.
Yes.
And that's vulnerability. So I agree with that a lot.
That's so beautiful. Oh, I love it.
Those are good questions.
Yeah.
Those were. And, you know, actually it takes us to one of our last questions for you. And just speaking on overstepping poverty and what it means to you, I want to know exactly the 5 tips, tricks, and hacks you have for someone to overstep poverty and become successful and have that successful mindset like you have.
I wrote them down, guys.
Hey, she's prepared.
I came prepared.
She's a professional.
So you did ask me though, like 5 tips that you would tell your younger
Your younger self.
Okay.
It can.
Yeah. So I think one of it is be patient with yourself. You have to be patient with yourself in order to stay consistent and on the right path in your life. Because when you're not patient and when you're impatient, that's when that's when you create a lot of chaos. And that's one thing for me that I struggle with is like, for instance, when I feel stagnant or when I feel like I'm not doing enough, like that, my impatient self is like, oh, let's create chaos because that's what makes me feel
literally
good in a sense, but really it's not worth it. Like, don't do it to yourself. Yes, it's so true. Like that's one thing. It's like with ADHD, you always have to be going, man. Like for real.
Nothing ever is good enough. That's
it's so sure. Yep. It's so what? Yeah, I feel that. I feel that. Another thing is just knowing that you are so beautiful inside and out. Like no matter your flaws, and I know we kind of talked about this with like the fashion and stuff, like modeling and stuff, like a lot of us, you know, especially as women, we constantly compare ourselves to other women, or like we're not good enough, or they're doing that and I'm not doing that. At the end of the day, everyone has their own journey and we are beautiful in our own way. And God created us in such a unique way. Like, why are we comparing to the next person? Because at the end of the day, they're probably thinking the same thing. For real. Another one. Let me get my password. Everything is going to be okay in your life. No matter what you go through, no matter like how dark you may feel. Like if there's someone right now like in their room feeling so dark and so much sadness, like I promise you, you will overcome it. Keep going and keep striving and be around people who are going to support you and love you. That's the biggest thing. Stop surrounding yourself with people who have nothing for you. It's not worth it. Especially when you're trying to grow and evolve as a person.
Agreed, 100%.
So I know you said your younger self. One thing I wish I would have told myself when I was younger is be a kid. Be a kid. Stop focusing on trying to be an adult, trying to impress men. I think as a young woman who doesn't have a father in their household present, strives for that attention from male attention, and it's not worth it. It is not worth it. Have self-respect for yourself, love yourself, and know that you are worthy of a respectful man. Stop going after the troubled men who just want X, Y, and Z from you. It's not worth it because you're only going to break yourself in the end. You're going to feel so broken. Trust me, girl. I was there.
That's perspective.
And then the last one is, I think that's it. Yeah. And just have self-respect for yourself. Love yourself.
I love it.
Yeah. So
good job. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I know it's something that you were kind of nervous about. Had the butterfly.
Yeah, I did, guys, from being honest.
If you're being honest, and if I'm being honest, I think you did a really good job.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So again, thank you for coming on.
Yes.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yay.
Take us
And
out
that's
of here,
it
Daquan.
for Overstepping Poverty. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Overstepping Poverty. We hope you found this week's discussion informative and thought-provoking. We know that tackling poverty is a complex issue, but by working together and understanding the root causes, we can make progress towards creating a more equitable society. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe to our show. Until next time, let's take the next steps in Overstepping Poverty.